Okay, if you're ready to get started, we're live on all three right now.
Um, Hold on, let me get set up on. I have some people. I'm sharing the live on
Okay.
my YouTube, on my Zoom, whatever. So, okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Coretta Graham. I am president of Texas Democratic Women. Oh, hold on. Uh, what did I do? Hold on, let me get myself together. Sabrina, you can go.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this evening for our Ready to Lead, Ready to Run candidate training. In this session, we're going to be focusing on Campaigns 101. As you just heard, we are here with the lovely President Coretta Graham of Texas Democratic Women, with our host, Mr. Ronald Gordon of Texas in Color. And our guest speaker tonight is going to be Miss Sierra Evans with IDK Communications, that's going to walk us through what it looks like for a candidate running a campaign. So, with no further ado, I will yield the floor.
Greetings all. I would like the opportunity to be able to share my screen if that's at all possible.
All right, let me give you permission for that.
Thank you.
All right, you should be set, ready to go.
Okay. Thank you, thank you. I do have individuals trying to access the digital platform so I'm not sure if we had any difficulty with that.
So, for Twitch, you would just go on and put in Texas in Color.
Yes,
And then also for Facebook, just put in the search bar Texas in Color.
that is correct.
And the same with YouTube.
Yes.
So hopefully, Sarah, that will help your individuals get on any one of those platforms, in addition to X and um, Instagram.
All right. That sounds great. Uh-oh. All right, now let me know if you can see the screen just fine or if we're good to go.
Looks good on this end, Sierra.
Brian, thank you so much, Sabrina. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy to be here again. My name is Sierra Evans. I am the Executive Director of IDK Communications. IDK Communications focus on providing communication solutions to our clients, and we are excited to be here. I have 15 plus years in the political space. I was born into it. So I'm happy to be able to serve. I've also been able to manage campaigns and initiatives on the federal, state, and local level. So happy to be here again. So today, I'm grateful to have the Texas Democratic Women as well as the Texas Black Caucus and other attendees here in support of this topic, Campaigning 101. So a couple things that we'll talk about today is the learning objectives. You heard a little bit about me, key topics. I'm going to suggest some activities because I'm not sure we'll have enough time to really dig deep into those, and then some additional resources on how you can maximize your win and your campaign. So some learning objectives for today that are essential for introduction to campaigning is understanding the timeline of a campaign. That is one of the most essential components of your campaign, is understanding the timeline. Learn campaign budgeting and staffing basics, as well as exploring voter targeting and outreach strategies. So some of the key topics today will consist of the campaign structure. You need to have a treasurer before you do anything on a campaign. When you are running a campaign, it is essentially a business. And I know a lot of times people don't see it that way, but that is the best way to maximize your political campaign, is if you focus on structuring that campaign as a business. So you would need all of the different positions, essentially how a business would have a CEO, a COO. You would have a campaign consultant, a treasurer, a campaign manager, volunteers, a fundraising director, and so on. We're also going to talk about compliance and legal filing basics. Again, like I said before, a campaign is like a business. So there are requirements for you to submit. There are deadlines, there are consequences to deadlines, and there are extreme benefits to planning and being prepared. We're also going to talk about creating a campaign plan. The campaign plan will help you maximize every opportunity, mitigate most challenges and conflicts, and we're going to focus on field operations and voter contact. So some of the key components and organizational function of a campaign include fundraising strategy and donor development, email and text campaign, fundraising events and sponsorship activation, faith-based and community network giving, field and volunteer fundraising drives, digital ads and social fundraising kits, fundraising and goal tracking, as well as some other components. Now, when it comes to political campaigns, there's two different tracks. If you're an incumbent, if you're a first-time candidate, or if you've been a candidate before, but you haven't been successful in a win. So you will navigate your political campaign on three different journeys, depending on where you are. So some of the suggested activities would include building a campaign plan. Now, some of the things that we have within building a campaign plan will include one of the things. Let me see if I can actually go to that page. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this module here for your campaign will have a strategic insight and needs to make informed decisions and win your race. So the data analysis form in this assessment component is a core piece of your service package when you are running a campaign. You have to treat it as if it's a business. So you have to understand the roles and responsibilities of the seat that you plan to obtain. You want to be successful, and in order to be successful, you have to know the rules and the regulations and the responsibilities for that seat. You also need to have a candidate profile and a comparative assessment. When you are running for office, you want to make sure that you see yourself as a brand, and also know what are some of those other competitors and what are those pieces that make you better. What are those skills you have and those assets that would make you a more viable candidate? Also, voter behavior and turnout trends are essential. You want to make sure you understand the data. When you run a race, when you are in a campaign, you have to know that it's all about data because it's essentially about votes. You have to be able to understand your win number. You have to know voter behavior and turnout. What areas vote most? What areas do mail-in ballots more predominantly? What areas vote early? What areas are maximizing the election day turnout, so you can know how to create your plans for communications. The election data, the breakdown performance review is really, really essential. If you're running for office, you want to make sure that you have access and the know-how to navigate the election data. If you're running for an office, you want to look at past elections. It's also beneficial to look at different fundraising platforms that they use. You can look those up. You can see how much money did they raise. So you can have an idea of how much money you may want to raise. What were those additional performance reviews when it came to the election data? Number 5, demographic and electoral segmentation is important and you need to have that. Number 6 is a really big one, opponent analysis and opportunity assessment. What opportunities do you have when it comes to assessing what your component has and what they don't have so you can maximize your opportunities? You want to have an empowerment and motivated base. You want to make sure that you are empowering a movement and you are motivating your base with innovation and information. You also want to have strategic targeting and you want to collect feedback. Some of the 7 components that you want to focus on, we call them phases. So phase 1 is your client, your donor, your voter orientation. You want to acclimate them on what your stances are. Why are you even running? You also want to make sure that in phase 2, you focus on the internal business structure. So do you have those different names? Have you already collected your domain names? Have you collected all of those different pieces that are incorporated in the communication structure that you'll need? You have to make sure that you function as a business and get your messaging out. Have you focused on your treasurer designation? Your campaign cannot move forward without, in most cases, without a treasurer. You have to file the appropriate documentation and make sure that you have the information that's needed so that you can be successful in your campaign. Because as we know, politics is like business. Business has consequences if you don't do things the right way and submit it, as well as a campaign. So these are some of the components. You want to make sure that you have a campaign kickoff and a victory celebration rollout. You want to make sure that you select a board of executives like your treasurer, your campaign manager, your finance director, all those things. So you also, a suggested, activity is also a mock budget and a calendar development document. You want to make sure that you have the opportunity to be prepared when a donor comes to you. I always tell people, I say, make sure that you are ready for the ask. When you ask for money, make sure that you have all of the platforms and the mechanisms to receive that money. You can ask for a certain amount of money. You can have a donor, you don't know how invested a donor is. They can say, well, what do you need? You can say, I need X, Y, and Z. Don't be timid about it. Make sure that you ask for what you need and know why you need the money. A lot of donors are investors in campaigns. They want to know, what do you need that money for? Because you never know who's connected to what and what resources that they can provide. So you always want to have a breakdown of a budget. You also want to make sure that you have a calendar. I have an example of briefly of a calendar. And this calendar here is just build out awareness. What do you do for week 1, week 2? What do you do? And this essentially is for communications, but you can also implement this for your financial pieces of your campaign. So here you'll see it says post an introduction of the fundraising goal, the timeline. So this is all communications here. You'll see different pieces of what you can do. Facebook analytics. You can also have TikTok, Instagram, but you have to make sure you know your base so you can know which platforms you need to activate the most. And it's essential to look at the analytics and the data. Week 2 would be building the momentum. That will be an essential component when you have your communications rollout and your plans. So host a live Q&A and a session for your volunteers on how you can amplify your posts and share links with their networks. You have to engage, because nowadays in social media, if it's not posted, it didn't happen. That's what they say. So we're going to move with the time so we won't be left behind and we can come home with the W, which is winning your race. Day 10, it says launch a countdown, 30 days left to reach your goal. It's important to make sure you keep timelines for your base and your constituents. So that's one of the most essential pieces as well. Making sure you're communicating what you need when you need it. A case study, break down successful campaigns. Look at or choose an example of a campaign that you felt was successful and emulate some of those great key points that they did or they used or the systems they implemented, so you too can be successful in how you move forward with your race. So some of the resources that you want to make sure that you have and that I'll send to you, I'll share that with the QR code at the end, is a campaign strategy template. I'll provide those templates for you so you can have an idea of what are some of the essential pieces that I can have and I can start with, so I can get an idea of a framework. That would be a campaign strategy template. Sometimes we need a little assistance on how do I structure and strategize for this campaign most effectively and strategically. Also, a campaign calendar, which you just saw a sample of, and if you wanted to see that sample or have it for your own use, again, we'll have that resource for you at the end. And then FEC and state filing guidance. There's a template for that as well. There are several different components that you want to make sure you have. The Secretary of State or your local municipality will be your best friend. Depending on which office you are running for, you want to make sure you communicate with the right team of people who will help you get to the other side of your race. So I have a couple more minutes, but these are some of the things that I will actually break down within the structure of a campaign. So I call this the director's package. So in a director's package, these are some of the things you need to direct. So again, we talked about the essential components you'll need and the people that you have in place for a campaign. And I call this person the director. So the public relations and the outreach. So this is the person who would establish and maintain the relationships with the media outlets, influencers, and other organizations to increase your visibility, right? Also, your administrative support will be essential. They will help you in assisting with administrative tasks, including scheduling, email management, and document preparation, because there will be a lot of preparations. Also, they will allow you to focus on that leadership role. So you have to have committees and team in order to do the work, because you cannot run an election by yourself. Also, analytics and reporting. You want to have someone that can focus on the data, the numbers. So they would provide an in-depth analytics to regular reports on the performance of your marketing and communications efforts in order to enable that data-driven decision-making. And then a project manager. When you have several different projects, say, oh, we're gonna donate food to some of the recipients, maybe from SNAP. If you're coordinating an event to help a certain population, you need a project manager. So that project manager would be the person that would truly help you with all of those essential components of planning, execution, and completion of said projects. So the executive package is really organizational management, contract development, the person that would get the vendors for your campaign. So where will you go to get the hats, the shirts, the yard signs, all of those things? It is good to have all that information already on hand or collected wherever you plan to get that information, even when it comes to the physical aesthetics. Where will you get who will do your hair? Where will you get your suits? Or what? Just all those different things, so you can know what pieces you need to fundraise, what you need to have, and you know, maybe even some of the memberships that you would probably need to be a part of, just having those pieces together. Also, the communication. So creating, promoting, and sustaining a uniquely tailored communication system will be essential because it will help you stay organized and reach your growth goals, okay? So just know how important it is to have communications, a communication director. It is so essential. So the influencer package, we are in 2025. We cannot do anything nowadays without social media, okay? So the influencer package is essentially someone who knows how to navigate social media. They would be the management team for social media and handle those day-to-day social media posts or platforms, creating the posts, responding to comments, which are essential, and implementing effective social media strategies. They would also essentially be the person to check the analytics, the content creation and management. It takes a lot of work to create all of those pieces of content. So this is why you need to have a team. Also, a podcast marketing. So you need someone that will focus on your podcast and getting the videos out, whether you use YouTube or whatever platform you use. If you're going to go live, say for instance, if you're running for city council, if you make it your business to go to city council meetings every single week or bi-weekly or commissioner's court, whatever you're running for, you can create different podcasts, talk about different topics, and you want to have someone who can really do that and do that well, because again, social media is key today. Comprehensive branding is essential. In 2025, you have to have your brand together, and it's important when you're running for office to have things unified. So that will be really, really important for political candidates. So we also have a leadership package. So you want to be the total package when you are a leader, because when you're running for office, you are a leader. Whether you have all of the tools and skills you need to be successful in that, it's okay if you don't, but just reach out for all of the things that you are not good at, because I know if you don't know how to do it or you don't have the skills, you just have to be trained and developed. So you want to have growth management, someone that focuses on maybe those performance levels, you know, managing the data, the growth, the performance, and then that conflict mediation. When you are running for office, there may be conflict. You may have a competitor. There's going to be good news, bad news. There's going to be things that come up, and you want to make sure you have a team that's ahead of that and not behind. So those are some of the most essential components when it comes to those packages. So I am happy that I had the opportunity to be here today. I want to remind everyone to make sure that they focus on the primaries. I know that we are here with the Texas Democratic Women as well as the Texas Black Caucus. We have a lot of exciting things going on in Texas, and I want to make sure that anyone who's listening to this, make sure you have the same passion and energy for other elections as you do the presidential elections. And I will speak culturally for predominantly for, I will reference the Black Caucus. You want to make sure that we are advocating for all the different elections that are out there, because the primaries are extremely important. Just like we had the amendments just recently, we want to make sure that people know you need to vote for every election, for every cause, up and down the ballot. All these elections matter. And here is the QR code if you would like me to email or send you the campaign strategy template or the political campaign calendar sample or the FEC and state filing guidance sheet. Again, my name is Sierra Evans with IDK Communications. So happy to be here. So happy to help. And I look forward to seeing all Democrats at the top, because the bottom is too crowded. Thank you so much. And I yield my time.
Thank you so much, Sierra. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but you touched on so much that we want to convey to people for them to understand what all it takes and what it entails to run for office. There's several different moving parts, and you broke it down so eloquently. Do any of our participants, do you guys have any questions about the information that Ms. Evans has shared at this time? Well, Sierra, I had a question on while we're waiting. You had mentioned that even giving emphasis or being specific on your attire, what you're going to wear, how you're going to do your hair, makeup, what type of jewelry, cologne, whatever. Um, could you kind of expound on some things that you may not expect? Like, for instance, Chairman Nickens had mentioned that you may want to have like a travel bag with you because you may not be able to go to an event maybe as fresh as you would like to because you've been maybe running around, going to various events. So could you kind of explain on some things that we should look out for that you may not have touched on in your presentation?
I love that. What you just brought forward. When it comes to your attire, you're absolutely right. Whoever posed that piece of the question, you're not always going to be able to be as fresh and as nice. You won't have time to go home sometimes and to get in that shower or that bath for 2 hours. So yes, it's very important. Again, I mentioned in the presentation before, you have to have a team. You have to have preparation for what you plan on doing. That's why you have to have a calendar and a schedule. If you are planning to go to 3 different events, you can go to a groundbreaking event, you can go to a snazzy, a very high-end event, and then maybe you can go do something with the kids. In order for you to be successful and change and have the right attire, obviously for a groundbreaking event, that will be something. Sometimes that may be appropriate to wear something a little more business-like, but I would advise anyone who's running for office, it's better to dress up and overdress than to be underdressed. When you're going to an event, you want to make sure you prepare a bag for several different events. Like I mentioned, the groundbreaking event, something with the kids. You may have to jump out and block walk. You want to have some shoes if you're a lady, have some heels. You want to make sure you have definitely a suit. Woman or man, you want to have something that's extremely business attire. You want to make sure you have something that's for a gala, that's gala appropriate. If you are a lady, you want to make sure you have the right undergarments, like maybe stockings or spanks or whatever that is. You want to make sure you have a hairstyle that's versatile, something that would be easy for you to manage when you're moving around on the go on your own. The goal is to have a team, especially a campaign manager, when you're navigating those places that can say, hey, this is what you need. Here's a jacket, or I'll hold your jacket. All those different pieces when it comes to attire. When you think about the physical piece, maybe when it comes to the neck and above, makeup, demure is better. You don't want to go to something and have just really bright or really aggressive colors on your face. Less is more. You want to kind of dress down so when you enter the room, it has power to it, but it doesn't overshadow what you're saying. So you want to have something that's just very business, very presentable. Black excellence are just excellence in general, and make sure that people can focus on what you're saying and not just your attire or the physical pieces of what you're wearing. Don't wear anything too tight, too revealing, too scantily, like you don't want to do those things. For men, making sure, and this is really actual in general, making sure that your clothes are ironed, not wrinkled, presentable. Everything has to be top notch. You have to embody yourself as if you are that elected official already, the way you navigate. So I hope that answers your question. If not, feel free. I'm here for a dialogue.
Absolutely. And this is just, like you say, dialogue for people to kind of understand and expand their mind on the ideas of what a campaign really entails. And President Graham would like for you to go over the campaign outline on the different types of campaigns. I know you mentioned federal, state, local. Can you kind of expound on those?
Oh, yes. So, are you asking for me to say which more what, like the difference between an incumbent or a first-time candidates and their needs? Which one?
Yes.
Both. Okay, so we have in the state of Texas, we have our governor, we have lieutenant governor, we have everything down from U.S. Congress, we have city council people, we have commissioners, we have county chairs, we have precinct chairs, we have constables, we have justice of the peace, we have we have state reps, we have state senators, we have all those things here in Texas. And you have to understand whatever position you are running for. It would be great to know if that election, are you going to be running against an incumbent or is it an open seat? Is that person termed out? Have you had a conversation with? It's a lot of different components that comes to running for an election, and it's very, very important to have conversations with those people and those individuals, or at least have shadowed them in such a way to where you can have a better understanding of what it is they do and how they navigate in that position. Because a lot of times people will run for office because of a grievance that they have, but don't understand the complexities of those actual seats. So like I mentioned before, there's two different things when you're running for office. An incumbent will have a different value set and urgency as a first-time candidate. So when you're an incumbent, understanding that the services are essential for maintaining your position and building on your achievements. What you want to do is be able to communicate, what have you done well? How will you continue to do well? And how has your record reflected? And then with those different pieces that you've already instituted in your role as an incumbent, what different areas will allow people to connect with you to give you more time to stay in that seat? So you have to really have a really good track record, and you have to be intentional about what your vision is if you are an incumbent. A first-time candidate, there's a lot of different moving pieces because it's just essentially the same as having no credit or bad credit. Sometimes people are like, oh, it's okay if you don't have any credit, and some people are like, oh, it's actually worse if you don't have any credit, because at least we would know what the track record would be if you did have some type of record and an explanation for that. So a first-time candidate, it'll be a lot different because they're going to need a lot more comprehensive campaign strategy, message development. Everything is the first time. They may need a platform campaign speech. They may need to develop that, get the data. So those are some of the pieces that I would say when it comes to an incumbent, first-time candidate, and some of the positions that we have here in Texas. All of those pieces of information when it comes to the offices here in Texas, you can find on the Secretary of State or some of our respective websites. So I would definitely make sure that you explore those options to best understand which position you're going to run for and the functions of those.
And Sierra, you mentioned various, offices, federal, state, local. In the planning and the preparation to run, you even mentioned about possibly shadowing the person or the office you're interested in running for. What is a timeline that a person would need to consider in reference to preparing to run for office, even before they start their campaign? Is there any type of rule of thumb? Like if I wanted to run for county clerk, would that be a 5-year planning prior to running? Would it be a day? Like, can you give an idea of what a person would need to consider in planning even before they start their campaign trail?
Oh, absolutely. That is so good. If more time is better than less time, depending on when your election is and how much research you have done, this preparation will tell you need more time than not. So me personally, I would say at least 1.5 to 2 years, if not even more, depending on which seat you're going to run for. So you mentioned county clerk. So with county clerk or most positions, you have to pay a fee to run for, office. A lot of times it's not free. So you want to make sure that you understand those different components. And when it comes to time, you need as much time as possible because you need to acclimate yourself in those spaces. People need to know you. And that's why I say about at the very least, a year and a half. Sometimes people's elections, like say for instance, right now is a period where you can file for office. Primaries are in March. If you have just decided to run for office just now, you have done no strategy, no research, that's going to be very challenging. Not to say it's not doable, but if you're not familiar in this space, it's going to take a lot of work. At the very least, a year and a half to 2 years at minimum, me personally. Because if you have a team, you want to be able to say, hey, I've done this, I've gone to these different meetings, I've gone to these different organizations, I understand the functions. You have, as a candidate, have to be embedded in that work, and it's going to take time to do that. And it truly just takes time. It does not happen overnight, because what you want to do is prepare yourself for success. And if you don't prepare in advance, when you get in that seat, they're going to expect it. Some things people are just going to expect you to know. And if you haven't properly prepared for that leadership component of running for office, it's going to be extremely hard for you to maximize your legacy as an elected official and how much you can provide to your constituents, because you're still developing some of those more fundamental components. So I would definitely say at the very least a year and a half to 2 years. But if you are running against someone who has a $90 million war chest, you need some years. You definitely need some years, and you need to have already built the relationships to have potential donors that can help you match that same energy, especially financially. So you need to be able to transition that social capital into financial capital. And some people, they may not take as long as others because they already have so much social capital and maybe their own financial capital. So it really depends on what that candidate's history is. First time incumbent, established or not, it'll essentially depend. And that's something that I can help provide on a one-on-one basis if that's needed, because I know it's 6:45 and you guys have a meeting you have to get to. So I love these questions and this dialogue.
And also, speaking about compliance and legal filing basics, what are the legal requirements with running a campaign?
Well, I mentioned before in the space, 9 times out of 10, having a treasurer establishes your campaign. So again, depending on which office you are running for, it will have a different set of requirements for, the FEC or for your local municipalities. Like even when you open up your bank account, there's going to be certain requirements. And I can just, I guess, mention that as the minimal requirement. When you accept money, there's certain verbiage you have to have, or certain information from the donor you have to have. There are certain filings you have to have. There are certain declarations you have to declare, depending on if it's a partisan or nonpartisan race. So there are a plethora of requirements that you have to have, but a lot of them have to do with money. You may have to get signatures to run for office. You'll need a set amount of signatures to be placed on the ballot or to move forward with different initiatives. There are a lot of different pieces, legal requirements for running for office and to establish your campaign. And I'll just continue to briefly touch on that. The most minimal piece is when you're accepting money, you want to have a place for those pieces to go. And yes, you can go to the Texas Ethics Commission and then the FEC, the website, for those additional legal requirements and the step-by-step. You have to create those accounts. You have to make sure that you understand how to file a report, because there are campaign finance reports that you have to submit. When you accept money, you have to make sure that it's treasurers and finance directors are extremely important when it comes to running for office. The more competent and trustworthy those people are that's handling your money, the better. You want to have people that are competent and that you can trust and that understands the job. I know a lot of times people will just put someone in place and say, hey, this is someone who's never even voted before that's going to do my campaign. That may work, but it's a lot easier when you have someone that essentially is they understand the fundamentals of money and then the political requirements that it takes when you're running for office, and then those legal components. So again, that's something, if someone is interested in that, I can speak more one-on-one to, because it depends, so many different variables with that that I would like to dig deeper into if I had the time. So I'm excited about this space and the opportunity to be able to speak to campaigning one-on-one.
Did anyone else have any questions that they may have thought of during this session? Well, if no one else have a question, I have another question. Can you kind of give us a breakdown of a successful local campaign? As you mentioned, a county-wide, like county clerk, might be a little more in-depth than maybe city council or school board, or even the appraisal district versus running for governor. Could you kind of break down what does a local campaign look like?
So do you mean in regards to the actual elections and breaking down the numbers and the votes and how they actually win?
Yes.
Okay. So you mentioned the county chair. Is that, I think I heard you say county chair.
Oh, no, county clerk.
Oh, county clerk. A county clerk. So when it comes to a successful campaign, someone who's running for county clerk, I'm trying to think. There's so many different counties, so I guess I can use my county that I'm in. I'm in Fort Bend County, and right now we have interesting county clerk race that will be happening very soon. So the voters, what has been happening right now is essentially what they will do is they will reach out to the voters. They will have either buy or have access to van, which I'm speaking in terms of obviously the Democratic Party, but they will have access to van. They will reach out to precinct chairs, the voters, and let them know what their platforms are, what they stand for. They will ask for their votes. We want to make sure, I guess they will make sure that people get to the primary elections, because that's the first election that they will be on. The primary elections have early voting and then election day voting. So they would also make sure that they are at the county conventions, what would give them a bigger boost to run for office or to win their primary race. So the primary race that they will run in March will be with other Democrats. So essentially what will happen in the primary election is there will be Democrats who are all running for county clerk, and then other Democrats in that county. Every single person in the county that is registered to vote and goes to the polls, they will ask for a Democratic ballot if they want to vote for a Democratic candidate. When they choose those candidates, the candidate who gets the most votes will go on to the elections at the end of the year in November. So they will be the primary winner when they have the most votes, and that one person will go on to the November elections unless there's other things that happen in politics where things are contested or certain things happen with votes. So that's what would happen. So we saw in Harris County, they had an election for CD 18, and it is a runoff. So now those are how those different pieces happen. So The function of it is essentially depending on what race you're running for. So this, you're going to have a primary election. The primary election, you will be running against other people in your party. Whoever gets the most votes and reaches out to the most people, they will win. They will move forward either to a runoff or straight to November elections. And then if they win that against the opposing party, which would be the Republican Party in this case, would be the opposing party, then they would win that seat. And then they would take office after the term of the current incumbent is complete. And then they would be installed. And then they would be the new county clerk or elected official. I hope that helps. But if you have any additional pieces, I would love to come back for campaigning 102. So we can dig deeper into any additional pieces of that.
Absolutely. And when would you recommend having a campaign manager? In any race or in races like city council, school
Any
board?
race.
Any race.
Any
Okay.
race. Any race. Again, like I said before, when you run for office, to me it's the most absurd thing to think you can run by yourself, because if you want to run by yourself, that means that you're going to lead by yourself, and it's going to be hard to do that when you have to adhere to your constituents. And again, I will emphasize, when you're running for office, you have to remember your base of people that you will be representing. It is not just what you think and what you want. Those people that voted for you are your constituents. So you have to engage them and ask them what they want. It's not all about what you want, because you're not, they did elect you, but you have to engage your base to make sure that their voices are being heard, because that's essentially your job, is to be the representative of the people. So having a campaign manager and having a team that takes over several different components of those essential components of a campaign. The campaign manager saves lives. A campaign consultant helps, but the difference between a campaign consultant and a campaign manager, the consultant will advise and guide, but won't do probably the technician day-to-day work. A campaign manager delegates, will be able to step in your place. If you can't show up for a meeting, they can be a proxy for you and speak on your behalf, show up to do all those different things. They can be there day to day. And it's a lot more helpful to delegate information and tasks throughout a team of people. So the campaign manager would help you with your team functions and those administrative pieces. The consultant will essentially advise and tell you what to do. Hey, this is what you should do. This is what you should consider. So, but thank you so much. I really appreciate these questions and this dialogue. So.
Is there anything else that you would like to share that might have came to your mind, or any tidbits that you see now that you might not have saw 15 years ago when you first came into this political space? Like, for instance, the interactions with, candidates, elected officials, county parties, chairs, so on and so forth. What does that look like for a campaign trail? I know a lot of times, especially in the smaller counties, the more rural counties, a lot of candidates doesn't visit those areas. So what is the relationship like at each level? Because, like, for instance, we're here today with the Texas Democratic Women and the Black Caucus, which are caucuses of the Democratic Party.
Right.
What is those relationships for a candidate on all of these different levels?
You said, what is the relationship for what?
On these different levels, like the relationship between a candidate and maybe a county party, the relationship between these auxiliary groups or caucuses that are affiliated with the party, that have special interest groups. What is the relationship a candidate should have with all these various entities within the party?
Sabrina, I absolutely love that question because so you mentioned how we have a Black caucus, and they are a piece of Texas Democratic Party. There are caucus, just how we have veterans and women's and rural and all those things, right? So in our chapter of the Black Caucus over here in Fort Bend, Richmond, Rosenberg area, we just had this conversation. So when it comes to a candidate, there are rules and like legal requirements, but then there's also the norms, the political norms, especially in the Democratic Party. There are going to be things that are going to be expectations that you may know or not know. And this is why people like a campaign manager or an experienced campaign consultant will be extremely beneficial. I think in the chat someone asked, you know, something about that. So when it comes to the candidate, especially if you are new, these different caucuses and committees are extremely essential. If you like the Black Caucus or any one of those caucuses within TDP, there's several different caucuses, just like there's several different committees. You know, you have rules, you have all these accountability factors, all of these different committees. The more you know about them, the better. Each one of those committees or caucuses has a chair and a co-chair, an executive board. It's great to know all of them because, and I will say this, some people who are running for office, they honestly don't know. And this is where I will say this to us who are deeply inside of the Democratic Party and all of the political happenings. The more people understand the functions of government and the political parties and the structures, the better off it'll be, because when the way I see it, when a voter or a candidate, especially a candidate, doesn't know those norms, like, hey, when you run for office, you actually should go to the county chair. Like, you know, you should speak with the county chair and have that conversation. And, you know, so they can know you, meet with the precinct chairs or meet with the caucus, go to the conventions, go to some of the different galas, go, you know, be immersed in that space, because those, in my opinion, it is up to those caucuses and those county chairs and those precinct chairs to make sure those voters even know that information. So that's a whole nother conversation, but it is extremely important to make sure that you as a candidate engage in every facet and understand, like you are studying for a college entrance exam. It is important for you to understand those functions so you can be as successful as possible and you can get your face seen and your name in the room. Because unfortunately, sometimes what happens is sometimes the people who just show up to everything, they, you know, people know their name and they know their faces, but you can look at their history or record and they haven't really produced much work. So there's several different components that, but I definitely will say, if you are a candidate, you need to make sure that you embed yourself in those spaces. And if you don't know, you need to ask for help. Someone said, can you run a campaign with little to no money? You can, but it'll be hard. I don't advise it. A lot of times people run for office and they don't understand how much money is involved in running for office. A lot of times you have to pay thousands of dollars to run. So I would definitely, and I know we are on we have the Black Caucus Party, especially our Black candidates, our minority candidates. A lot of times everyone doesn't have thousands of dollars to run, and that's okay. But you have to get with people who know how to fundraise it. And if you don't have the money to pay them up front, you need to come up with some type of, I mentioned before in the slideshow, contract negotiation. That's where that comes into play. Like, hey, I don't have the money at this point, but this is what I can do. Whatever money is raised, I can pay you your fee out of that every month, or I can make sure I give you a certain percentage. I do not think it is wise ever to run a campaign with little to no money. And I will also say this to candidates who are running for office. If you get a campaign manager or a campaign consultant, that means that you saw something in them, a skill set that you would be able to be successful based off of their track record. Let them do their job. Let them and your team do their job. Now, if they're not doing it well, that's different. You can always switch it out and move around. But let them do their job if they are good and they have a track record of success. Do their job, and you don't have to micromanage. So That's what I would say to that.
And how are endorsements part of the campaign?
Oh, endorsements can be a make or break for some campaigns. Endorsements, and I know I personally have worked in campaigns in different states. So we're talking about Texas today, but unions are extremely important. Knowing what different endorsements hold the most weight, what information you need to have, what different requirements the organization has for their endorsement meetings, knowing how to dress when you go to those endorsements, knowing what the requirements and those unspoken norms are. Like, some people, they'll have like, hey, this chair, you need to reach out to this chair before you actually fill out an application to be endorsed, or you need to go out to lunch. It's just certain norms that you have, but endorsements are extremely important because that will give you that credibility and that public trust. Because when people endorse you, there's a set of individuals who are either on the board or on a committee or an organization that they already have credibility and trust, and you are applying or are vying for that level of trust, money, credibility, or resources. So it's almost like, I'm not Greek, but to me it seems like the same thing is when you have to apply to do certain things to be a part of organizations, whether it's a social club or whatever it is. So it is extremely important, and it's a very essential component of most political campaigns. And it is so many different types of endorsements that you can have. So thank you for that question.
I was just going to ask you, how would you suggest candidates seek out endorsements? Should they seek out any and all endorsements, or should they focus on things that they care about or what their platform is for their campaign? Can you kind of give us an idea of how they should seek out these endorsements and when? Because I know sometimes, as you was talking, people decide to run at the last minute and the filing deadlines for the endorsements has already expired. So can you kind of expound on how they should be seeking out these endorsements and from whom?
Absolutely. And I want to go ahead and say, like, these questions are just amazing. It's really providing for great dialogue and insight. And I will say this, there is beauty in being prepared. I would definitely say, as you mentioned in the question that you posed, your platform, there's certain things that you should do first, second, third, fourth, fifth, and this will depend on whether you have a campaign consultant or a manager. If you have a campaign consultant or a manager, they should know how to advise you on that. If you don't, then what you would want to do is you would want to focus on what your platform is. What are you running for? What's important to you? Are you going to take money from, certain, wealthy people or certain PACs or certain, you have to identify that as a candidate. You have to identify, what do I stand for before you move forward with anything? Because a lot of times people would just say, yes, I'll do it. And you have to do your research on those endorsements and those organizations, because when you are endorsed by a certain group or organization or union or whatever it is, you are essentially aligning yourself with their beliefs. So you have to be very aware of what they stand for or what they don't stand for, because you are going to be aligned to that. And as a political candidate, elected official, you are going to have to answer to that, because when it comes to politics, they're very receipt heavy. They are going to track your record. They are going to ask, well, why did you do this? You said you weren't going to do that. So those pieces will be extremely important. And when it comes to how do you find these different endorsements, staying involved in the space, having a campaign manager or consultant, identifying different meetings for awareness, like the county party, that your county chair can give you a lot of information, or you can engage with the different caucuses of the Texas Democratic Party, join different committees. You can be engaged in different social organizations. There can be different clubs. There's a lot of different ways to find out. You can go on their websites, but honestly, it's best to build relationships because things happen through relationships. A lot of times, if your name is in the rooms and floating around and people have seen your face, they're going to be intrigued. They're going to say, hey, what is this person about? What are they doing? Let's reach out to them. Or, oh, let's go find out what if this is something that they would be interested in. Sometimes you get tapped for certain things like, hey, we would like to consider you for an endorsement. Sometimes you don't. So it is up to you and the relationship that you build and the amount of competency you will essentially grow and learn to have when it comes to the political space or the things you want to engage. But you or your team should seek those out, and that's why you should plan at minimum 1.5 to 2 years in advance. So at least you can go through a cycle, a political cycle or a season, a year-long season where you can say, okay, this happens during this month, this happens during this quarter, this gala happens. So you have to embed yourself in those spaces. So I thank you for that last and final question. This dialogue has been really, really great, but I have a little baby over here that keeps tapping at this door. I love the Black Caucus. Like, I love nothing more. I'm excited about the gala and elections that they're having in December. And I'm so grateful to be able to have the opportunity to speak amongst some great people who are definitely doing the work in Texas and in their areas. So I hope to continue to be engaged with your work, and we can continue to collaborate and partner. And I want to do everything I can to make sure that I'm supporting the vision and the leaders on this call. So thank you for allowing me to be here tonight.
Do any of the participants have any questions? Ms. Justice, Ms. Sublett, Ms. Phillips?
If there are any additional questions, I have a link that I can send you, and I would love to answer those via email. I can send out any additional questions that you have, and I can be available for one-on-ones at a later date time.
And Ms. Evans, can you put your contact information also in the chat? We're also going to forward your information out to all of our registrants as well, because we most definitely want to connect our people with resources. So we most definitely want to make sure we ship your name out. So we would greatly appreciate that.
Absolutely. I'll drop it in the chat in just a moment. Thank you so much.
President Graham, did you have anything else? Mr. Gordon, did you guys have any parting words if there's no other questions or if there's anything else?
No, I don't have anything.
Well, as always, Ron, you've always done a phenomenal job. Thank you for keeping us abreast with Texas in Color on what's going on right here in the great state of Texas. Appreciate you with WSAN and also with Texas Democratic Women. President Graham, phenomenal job on putting together this candidate training. This is most definitely needed. I look forward for us working on our next session. So if you know anyone that is interested in running for office, who is looking for resources and guidance, please send them our way. If there's nothing else, What? Let me see. Let me check the chat right quick.
I got all the chat highlighted, and I'm gonna copy it and I'm gonna send it out so everybody can have it.
So President Graham said, thank you guys so much. Session 3 will be February 2026. We will most definitely be touching bases on the upcoming convention that's going to be in Corpus Christi. We want to make sure we get people get involved, attending their county conventions to get that information, become delegates. And we also want to thank Miss Sierra Evans on an amazing job on Candidate 101. Most definitely going to have to bring you back for 102 because it was an absolute clinic. So thank you guys so much. And thank you to the Black Caucus for partnering with TDW. And if there is nothing else, we'll see you guys in February.
Recording stop.